Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, and welcome back to Joe on Joe Extreme! Hey, it's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and this is the only podcast where we go through every single episode of G.I. Joe Extreme! Episode by episode. I always get my episodes and issues confused. Episode by episode in order, Mystery Science style, guys. And today, we are watching Metalhead Goes AWOL. This is the second to last, the penultimate, they might say, episode of the entire G.I. Joe Extreme! I'm going to do as many of those as I can because we've only got 2 episodes left of this show. And then we're going to be rolling on to the next generation of G.I. Joe. And so, to help me get through this really, really great episode called Metalhead Goes AWOL is the one, the only, you guys know him from online, Yorktown Joe, calling in from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Yorktown Joe, welcome to Joe on Joe Extreme!
I am so happy to be here, Joe, and I really want you to save those golden pipes and not to burn out your extreme this early in the episode, but we'll certainly look forward to this episode as well as who knows what's going to happen next episode.
Don't you worry about these pipes. I feel like somehow my wife has gotten to you because Rebecca Lynn Wallenczak Slepsky, aka Toilet Teal, absolutely hates Extreme and cringes every time she hears it. She's in the other room right now, so I feel like you telling me to save my pipes on Extreme, I feel like she somehow sent you a note to be like, tell him to lay off it. It's enough. There's enough Extreme in my house.
And certainly we don't want those golden pipes to turn into gravel, or you never know. Gravel could sometimes that could give you that deep radio, excessive voice, and you certainly don't want it to be on that tone forever.
So you know what's funny? I certainly. I'm a bigger dude with bigger nasal cavity and all that stuff, and so I have a feeling my deep voice has a lot to do with just the size of my body and genetics and puberty and all that stuff. But true talk, when I was in like 5th grade or something, there was I played the Wizard of Oz in a grade school performance thing, right? I mean, they're still talking about it to this day, Yorktown Joe. To this day.
I know. I was reading about that online.
Oh, yeah.
It was quite something.
To this day, Playbill Chicago Ridge still raves about my performance. But the thing, and I absolutely recall remembering thinking this at the time, that my quote-unquote performance involved me screaming a lot. And I had a bigger voice than most kids, so I was constantly yelling and constantly blowing my throat out at like 10 years old. I think that gave me a deeper voice than I probably would have. And I genuinely think so, because I was really young and I was, for, 2 months straight, just like, not relying on any kind of actual microphone to do the work, but just actually screaming. Yeah. So it's funny you say that. Yeah, I do credit that with some of the depth of my voice. And, it's hard to walk through like Chicago Ridge Mall to this day between the heavy heights that Joe on Joe has brought me and the reflections of the Wizard of Oz performance. I get a lot of autograph requests. It's difficult to walk through the mall. I'm just gonna say.
I was gonna say you're probably all the cramping of your wrist from all those autographs. It's just
sure, yeah.
Got to be wearing
from
the
the autographs,
the fans, and you really appreciate that.
I am
you're there for.
Yeah, I am there for the fans. You're so right, Yorktown Joe. I appreciate you so much. So we thanks for joining me on this show, man. This is great. Before we got on this recording, we were talking a little bit. You're calling from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. My family is from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, specifically Thorpe, which is like Eau Claire's like armpit, right? Like it's right outside Eau Claire.
Correct.
And it's a very small town. You may even know some of my relatives, last name Pagel, if there's anyone up in Eau Claire or Thorpe listening and you go by Pagel and or Lure, guess what? That was my grandma's maiden name and married name. So
it's a small world, and
really
we're glad to be living in it.
It really is. So if any family is listening, guess what? This whole time you've been listening to your distant cousin, and I appreciate you. I've had some fun in Eau Claire. I remember we did a really fun indoor golf outing in Eau Claire.
There are a lot of wonderful things to do in Eau Claire. We've got the Chippewa River, of course, and there's bike trails. There's all kinds of fun to be had here in Eau Claire. My younger son does enjoy fishing. He's actually far better fisherman than me. He goes on his own and goes fishing, which is great. He'll get done with work or after school and say, "Hey, I'm going fishing," and
great.
We'll see him when it's dark then, and that's a good thing. He comes back with a smile on his face and
that's
done some hard work, so that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, Wisconsin's got great fishing. That's where we would go. We'd go up to Hayward, up to Moose Lake. I know there's a million Moose Lakes in Wisconsin, but the Moose Lake that's near Hayward, we'd go up there a lot, and for weeks at a time.
And he goes to around Lake Wissota a lot too, so that's good.
Fantastic. And in Eau Claire, you work at the University of Wisconsin, right?
Correct. I'm at one of the many UW systems that's not UW-Madison, but the UW system has 13 branch campuses, and I'm at the UW Stout, which is in Menominee, Wisconsin. That's one town to the west, closer to the Twin Cities than Eau Claire. So just a short hop on I-94 down the road, and I'm at Stout.
Awesome. And you help students. This is the reason I'm bringing this up and making this clear is you help people get financial aid, which is such an important thing, and is such it's a thing that's in the news all the time these days with the cost of college and everything. So you help students figure out how to pay for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. Work in the financial aid office, work with government reporting, work with making sure that the money gets here on time for the students so that they can finance their education and keep on going. And then also work with student employment, work study, so they can have their jobs on campus while they're going to school and learning, and work those jobs around their busy school schedule. And then we want to make sure that students can afford to go to college, so that that's not their concern. That their concern is just getting their homework done and surviving this exciting year.
Yeah, so true, man. I had a relatively, not easy, but relatively good college experience in the sense of financial payment stuff. My parents were cool and took out loans and all that stuff. But my senior year was the first year where I kind of had to work to kind of cover bills and pay for stuff, and I couldn't handle doing 4 years of that. I did it and we got through it and stuff, but I was working, 30 hours a week job plus another secondary, side thing, as well as the actual schooling. And it was the most stressful year of everything. I couldn't imagine someone, being in that position to like have to do that kind of work for 4 years while doing your 4-year college, like directly out of high school with a full caseload. So everything that we can do to help facilitate taking that mental and literal burden off people during that time, I think is great.
And I'm just glad to help and be part of it. We're all part of the team, and it's a good thing to do. Anytime I talk about that I work at the university, people ask, what do I teach? And I have at other times at other academic institutions been able to adjunct teach a class or two on finances and accounting. And but right now I'm just working in the office, helping people get by and helping them get their bills paid.
And you come from a finance background?
We business and different things involved with that. Yes. Well, obviously, when you're working with the government, you have to account for all of the funding. I'm not a CPA. Are you
a government employee? You're not a government employee, right?
No. We're part of the UW system, right?
You work for Extensive Enterprises.
In perpetuity. right. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
for only 120 easy monthly payments.
Yes.
So yes. No, we're with that. That's probably
it's a great segue. It's a great segue. So let's talk G.I. Joe. So your handle online, everybody, if you want to say hi to Yorktown Joe, if you're not already friends with him, find him on Instagram and Twitter at Yorktown Joe. That's one word, spelled Yorktown, spelled Joe. so you, I mean, you identify as a Joe fan online. So what is that? Has that been a lifelong? Was that late in life you came back to it, or did you ever stop? Like, what's your G.I. Joe experience?
So interestingly enough, I'll say it's been mostly lifelong, but this is we'll bring that full circle here at the end of our conversation. So when people say they're there from the beginning, a lot of times they're talking about 1982. I actually had prior to that, so I was alive in the 70s, and that'll give. Instead of saying what my actual age is, I'll just say in the 70s because people probably be listening to this episode for decades to come.
Oh,
So
of
then
course.
they can
I mean,
just figure out how
of
old
course
I
they
am
were. They
from
have. I'm
that.
telling you, they have all my
Right.
pods on a loop at the Chicago Ridge Mall. As long as that mall's standing,
There'll always be
as long as
Joe
there's
on
as
Joe
long as
Pod-
there's 4 patrons going into a Payless shoes. Although Payless, I think they resigned for bankruptcy. There's gonna be a There's gonna be someone's gonna be listening to Joe and Joe Pod. I'm sorry, interrupt. Go ahead.
So, so I did have Super Joe. Before that, there was an iteration between the tall 12-inch or 1/6 scale Joes. There was, I think they were about 8 inches tall,
Mm-hmm.
Super Joe, and uh, they had like you could press on their back, and they would either do karate punches or kung fu moves or something along that lines. But they were basically a scaled down version of the 12-inch Joes. And then we
Yeah,
did
eight and
have
a half inch. Yeah, 8.5 inch
right,
features.
right.
It was
So
there he is, Super
yeah,
Joe.
I had the clever guy. I think he was the commander with the beard, and he was had like a black jumpsuit with some gold piping trim on it. So if there are people of my same genre, they'll know what I'm talking about with that.
For
He
sure.
had some kind of a backpack with a red glowing thing
Yeah,
on his chest. And yeah, so
1977 and 1978.
exactly. So that was probably my first experience with Joe, and then that line didn't really go for a long time. I know my brother had, I think he had the clean shaven guy with the red jumpsuit. So we each had a different guy, which was kind of nice because then sometimes he'd let me play with both of them, and other times I'd let him play with both of them, and sometimes we played together depending on where things were going with that. So that's was really an enjoyable time with that. But then I think we did end up with a couple of the fuzzy hair 1/6 scale Joes that mom had bought from a garage sale or rummage sale, whatever people's vocabulary of that is. And those guys had already seen significant battle action prior to them coming to our possession. So they still had their gear, they had their boots on, and they were camoed up. But yeah, they were missing some bits of hair. They had some near misses where just a bullet maybe grazed by, and their hair never grew back in that spot. So we did have some of those as well. But then 1982 came, and that was an exciting year. And when I saw some commercials, and I was, oh wow, this is something I gotta get into here. And I remember saving, get a quarter for this or a dime for that, and
Mm-hmm.
saving. And I saved myself $8 whopping to pick up Vamp with clutch, straight arm clutch
Yeah.
in 1982. So that was my first Joe. My brother was along, and obviously I don't think he was on the chore money list at the time, but I'm pretty sure mom got him Zap at that same time of purchase. But I was so proud. I had saved for that myself, and I bought that. I didn't beg it off of mom, and I'm pretty sure she probably covered the tax or whatever on that. But I had my $8 in quarters and ones that I had achieved from saving for a significant amount of time. And oh man, I still have that Vamp, and yes, it is a well-loved possession.
I love it.
Clutch.
I love it. Here's what I really dig about this is this is our by my reckoning of doing regular episodes. This is like our 171st regular episode, I think, or 170th regular episode, and then we did the movies and some other episodes, sort of stuff. But in all those episodes, I'm not even lying, Yorktown Joe, you're the first guy to talk about Super Joe. I think that's
right.
I think that is so cool because we've had people say like, yeah, I had the old, the 12-inch Joe and this and that, and because it's such a small window for Super Joe, it's 1977 to 78. It's a 1-year window, and here we are right at the end. at the end of Extreme, which is also a not often discussed section of G.I. Joe fandom, and here you are talking Super Joe. I absolutely adore that.
Well, that was like I said, it was a little bit of a window, and I think that maybe have connected to 1982 because it was only a few years later.
Sure.
Because the line went away, you couldn't get anything more. You maybe could buy some accessories that were still peg warming or something, but other than that, it was gone pretty quickly off the shelves. And at that time of, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I mean
figures going on, and
Star Wars owned that 5-year period.
That 77 to 81, they really
completely owned the toys for everything. There's,
right.
He-Man started coming in 81, 82, but that 5 year for between 77 and 82 was 100% Star Wars.
Yes. Well, with that, I know then there were other things where you had the original straight arm, and then they switched over to the swivel arm battle grip, and that was an exciting improvement.
Do you okay? So here's a question: do you remember that? Like, do you remember you had the straight arm, and then the next time you went, they had the swivel? Like, do you remember that being an upgrade? Like, so for me, my first one was Snake Eyes, but the first gen Snake Eyes, but when I finally got around to actually collecting them, like a year later or whatever, they already had, the swivel arms were already on there. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't kind of paying attention to that stuff, I guess is what I'm saying. So were you paying attention? And was that a real cool innovation for you? What did that mean to you?
That was a cool innovation. I know, like in the 70s, also just the same time, Fisher Price had the Adventure People, and we had Adventure People growing up. And then when we got the Joes, we're like, hey, these kind of are the same side, and like, hey, we've got this ambulance with a fireman and a nurse, and they can come help with the Joes in case something goes poorly for them. But I do remember the straight arm, and I remember what my brother and I mailed away for Cobra Commander, and he came straight arm, and that was the original 82, early 83, and then somewhere along the lines they changed that when the first, I can't remember the first figure I got that had swivel arm versus that, but and now over time it does blur a little bit on what I had originally versus what I have now that have come in various eBay lots or other trades with other people, and what was the original stuff. I'm pretty sure that I didn't acquire too much straight arm stuff after the fact. I think anything that I have straight arm was originally purchased by me. And then those did have a tendency to be more on the fragile side.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the
Did any of your thumbs survive?
Yes, actually, Clutch still has both of his thumbs.
What?
The original straight arm Clutch has both of his thumbs. Although I think he might have made some type of a comment at the wrong time, because he's in his waist piece, he's missing part. Not all of that is gone, but part of that is gone. The lowest part of that is gone. So it's a waist.
He's emasculated.
A terrible thing to waste.
Our friend Clutch has been emasculated.
Not fully though.
Okay.
It's still, if he's sitting down in the vamp, you wouldn't notice it. But even if I took a photograph from the top, kind of a top angle on it, you probably wouldn't notice that either.
So maybe he just like had a case of
an injury,
like plasticular cancer. So he just had to have one piece of plastic removed. Let's just say that.
Correct.
He came down with plasticular cancer.
Nonetheless, yes, I have acquired a swivel arm Clutch much later on, probably between 2000 and 2005. I'm sure I got a much fresher Clutch, which then the original one has been enjoying retirement.
So do you have a healthy sized toy collection today?
The opinion on that would probably differ between my wife and I. She would probably say it could be downsized.
Unhealthy.
I would say it's right sized, which is good. I do have so I collected, and then I was going to say with watched the cartoon. I know when my brother and I were on vacation visiting grandma and grandpa, we went down to the corner store. They had comics and gum and stuff, candy, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we would walk, and it was probably maybe a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile down on a completely straight gravelly road. We would walk down on the side of that and go to this corner store, and that's actually where I found Marvel issue 15. And I think
Amazing.
that was my first experience with a comic. And then later on, I found issue 1 at Target. There was I'm not lying to you, there was a stack of Marvel issue 1, probably about the size of a full copy paper size box
Target.
of comics, and they were just sitting there.
So you must have been near one of the earlier Targets. See, I know that they, I guess been around for a while, but man, I don't remember even hearing about Target until like mid 90s, maybe.
And I'll tell you, Target, and for listeners that want a little bit about Target, the Target Corporation's history, I'm not affiliated with Target in any way, but Target is a subsidiary. Target is a subsidiary, or they're the discount retailer that was a subsidiary of the Dayton Hudson Corporation, of the famous Dayton family. If people are familiar with Minnesota and the Twin Cities and politicians involved with the last name of Dayton, that whole family had the Dayton Hudson Corporation, and they had a clothing retailer that was Hudson's, and they had Dayton's was another company,
Mm-hmm.
and then Target was their entry into the foray, probably, and I would say it was probably early 80s, very, very early 80s that came into be. But I do remember that was not where I got Vamp with Clutch. We got that at a different place, but
that's crazy. That's funny. Target in Chicago, Target was not on any of our radars. I want to say maybe 92 at the earliest.
And I think it grew exponentially.
Like yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of spread from the Twin Cities, western Wisconsin, and then moved farther out from that. So,
well,
I guess it was
funny.
along.
I feel like Walmart was the same thing, and a lot of, possibly a lot of, not that I don't mean to delve into like politics and stuff, but I feel like a lot of that expansion ties in with some of the antitrust stuff that they busted out in the 80s, where they made it easier for companies like this to get bigger. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you see a lot of that. You see a lot of that large expansion of companies like Walmart, like Target, because it all ties in together towards like mid 80s, late 80s. Interesting. I don't know. That's me talking out of my butt.
Right. All I know is Target. We had to. Mom had to drive us to, and Kmart. There was a Kmart that we could walk or bike to. So
Awesome.
if we were going to check and see if there was Joe's there at Kmart, we could always make it there without needing a vehicle transportation.
Nice. Nice. So how did you choose the name Yorktown Joe? Are you from Yorktown, or is that's Pennsylvania? Yorktown, Pennsylvania? Is that?
That's an interesting thing you mentioned there, and I would love to say it had significant to do with my love of history. And there was a very decisive battle where the first real American heroes, under the leadership of not General Hawk but General Washington, defeated some rather dastardly foes there at the Battle of Yorktown.
Yeah.
So I would love to say that was the reason why that I chose that name, but the actual reason why was I needed a screen name for something or other online, and the street we were living on at the time was Yorktown Road. So that was
perfect.
But I'm sure that Yorktown Road was named after that town where the battle was. So indirectly, that would be where I chose that from.
Nice.
I would like to also say, with the comics, getting into reading the comics, it actually helped a lot. It expanded things with vocabulary. Hopefully I won't misspeak at all during this podcast, but it did expand my vocabulary. I know I had to look up, because of the awesome author Larry Hama, we had to look up a lot of words in the dictionary or the thesaurus to try to figure out what he was talking about, and it did expand our vocabulary quite a bit. And with my younger brother actually battled with dyslexia, and what I would do is I would read a like we would sit next to each other on a couch, and I would read the comic book page to him and make him follow along with me, and then I'd make him read the next page that was on his side, and then we'd go back and forth until he got better at reading. So I would say G.I. Joe helped him significantly, and it helped me with learning more things, but also helped me help him with that. So yeah, having a kind of a lifetime tie with G.I. Joe. I did, you mentioned about the stepping off or whatever, probably about I don't know, in the late 80s. I was pretty strong 82 to maybe 88, right, 88, and I'm sure I picked up a figure or two here and there after that, like 89 or 91, where just I randomly was on an errand doing something else and said, oh yeah, I'll drop $3 on that. But but I wasn't really actively saying, oh, I've got to get all of this stuff. And then I'm trying to remember what the comics, it was probably, I think somewhere in the 120s where I ended, and I've had to go back and find copies of those and
strangely some of those later comics are turning out to be harder to find, even though I don't think a lot of people consider them as some amongst the best of the G.I. Joe issues, but the print runs got down enough to where and Joe fans are just holding on to them because they're not being reprinted anywhere. That some of those later issues are really, really getting to be hard to find. So, did you have any experience with G.I. Joe Extreme at all?
That's actually I didn't, and that was bringing us full circle to the conversation of when stepping out. So being out of it for a little bit, and then I know I was aware that G.I. Joe Extreme, and I think before that, wasn't there like a year where there was like Sergeant Savage? And there was one,
there was a year of the toys as Sergeant Savage, and they did one episode of his cartoon. It was bundled on a VHS tape with the figures, and that sort of, it works as a prequel to this because it's the same character, but it's not like a direct prequel. Like the Sergeant Savage cartoon exists completely on its own. And then when you start Extreme, that exists completely on its own. They even recap Sarge's origin on Extreme, but it's the same origin as the Sergeant Savage episode. So it's essentially essentially the same universe and the same thing, except it's not really explicitly said.
Right, which is a complete ripoff of,
Captain America,
parallel retelling of the Captain America.
Sure,
back then Marvel was in kind of a hard way, so they probably didn't. Their lawyers were probably more concerned about restructuring debt and avoiding all the implications of various chapters of bankruptcy, as opposed to saying, "Hey, we gotta sue Hasbro because that."
It's the same. It's the same. That lineage, though. To be fair, that lineage goes back to pre-Captain America. The trappings of World War II, the shared trappings absolutely show that. Oh yeah, it's a rip of Cap. But think about Buck Rogers, which was
same thing,
right?
Yeah.
Which was a predecessor. Like in the comics, when Cap was just in in real time, Cap was just in World War II, and then Cap was just in the 1950s. And it wasn't until in 62 with Avengers 4 when Stan said, "Oh no, the real Cap's been frozen." Well, Stan took that idea from the concept was Buck Rogers, getting zapped to the future.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like conceptually, it's not like he was in when Cap first appeared. They said, "Oh, he's been frozen." No, he was just a soldier. Stan added that with Avengers 4, but that comes from the pulp lineage of the guy frozen in time fighting in a future time kind of a thing, which is that's Buck Rogers is that similar. I mean, it's not frozen in future, but the man out of time concept or man out of fish out of water hero stuff goes to Flash Gordon and like that kind of thing. So there's a lineage to it, but yes, obviously it's got a lot of Captain America parallels, but I'm okay with that.
And my ulterior motive,
Captain America never played basketball. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Sergeant Savage did.
Yes, he did. I actually went and tried to find that episode again because I'm sure someone had it.
Oh, that's the one on YouTube. That's on YouTube.
Right. That, and I found it on YouTube. I think I recall seeing that episode before, and I think I want to say I bought one of those Sergeant Savage with the VHS tapes
Yeah.
for my boss at the time's son, who was like 3 or 4, and I'm like, I'm not giving him a tape. I'm
3 or
just gonna
4.
give him the figures.
And,
I
and by the
extracted the VHS tape and closed it and gave that to him as a present.
that's funny.
He was enjoying the Jumping the Soldier, and I'm like, hey, look, maybe I passed G.I. Joe on to another generation there. So
That's hilarious. And I was going to say, by the time that kid grew up to actually appreciate the VHS tape, DVDs were around and there were no more VCRs.
there was no more VCRs, right? I probably, I'm thinking I may have a V. I have. We might have got rid of that.
Oh, I have.
I
I still have my VCR. I still have a VCR. I bought it brand new, probably in 2005, maybe, specifically because I knew they were going out of style and I wanted to have one in good shape that I could use. And I do use it once a year. I plug it in and watch my original Star Wars letterbox editions from the 80s. In style, yeah, pre special everything. So I do have that VCR. And listeners, all this talk about watching episodes and trying to find episodes, this is the right time to tell everyone within earshot. Go online, use the hashtag #ReleaseTheExtreme, spelled exactly how it sounds. Tag Hasbro, tag G.I. Joe, tag Joe on Joe at Joe on Joe Pod. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Tag us, use the Release the Extreme, and get Hasbro to release the Extreme. We want these Extreme episodes, whether it's actually, it would be great to get them on disc somehow, Blu-ray or DVD. But I can see they maybe don't want to go through that physical process, the expense of that. Let's get them streaming, though. Let's get them up on the G.I. Joe page. They've been showing a lot of the Real American Hero stuff, the Sunbow stuff on their YouTube page. Let's get Extreme up there with good quality prints. The stuff that we watch is actually from your neck of the woods. It's actually from Wisconsin. They're taped copies from near Green Bay. Oh, what is it? I'm blanking on it right
Appleton.
now. Appleton, yeah.
Wisconsin.
They're taped copies from Appleton, Wisconsin. And so the quality is terrible. The audio is terrible. But it's the only way that we can watch them. The reason they're not available might be a rights thing. I don't know, but I would love to get a Hasbro or someone on that end to kind of let us know this is why we're never going to have it. It's because maybe, who knows, maybe we can all figure out a way to make it work. Because as we've said many times, these episodes are good. I'd love to see more people see them. So hashtag Release the Extreme at Joe on Joe Pod, tag Hasbro. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is part 1 of a 2-parter. And we have part 2 next week. And as of this recording, which is, September 20th, 2020, I have not yet recorded that. So I have an open slot, ladies and gentlemen. So joeonjoepod at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know, do you want to be the final guest on Joe and Joe Extreme? Before we head into the sunset, I got a couple ideas of people I'm going to reach out to this week. But technically, it's still up in the air. So reach out and let me know. And even if you don't get to be the last guest for Joe and Joe Extreme, we do have more episodes to do. We're going to be doing more stuff after this. So please keep me subscribed in your pod browser. Keep giving me ratings online. You let me know. You like the show? Do you hate the show? Is the show everything you want it to be? Do you want to be a guest? Do you want to be do you want me to be on your show? I love crossing over. We've done a lot of crossovers over the years, and it has been a lot of fun. So with all that, Yorktown Joe, are you ready to start watching this episode, my friend?
It's time to get extreme.
Oh, it is such time to get extreme. So listeners, if you've got copies of this, and that's the other thing. What Yorktown Joe got today, guys, he got, not only did he get a download to the episode that we were watching today, Metalhead Goes AWOL, he got a link to the entire Google Drive. So Yorktown Joe is going to be enjoying all 24 episodes of this show, or 26 episodes of the show. And he's going to be enjoying all of them. So you, if you get to be the last guest, you also can enjoy them all. So, listeners, get ready with that file. Yorktown Joe, we're gonna do this, my friend. And here
sounds good.
We go. So we're getting extreme. Black Dragon jumping out at you. Eagle Eye, the aptly renamed Eagle Eye this season. So do you know who any of these characters are?
Only because I started when I found out I was going to be on the podcast here. I did look online to just try to do a little research on the name so that I didn't call one of the Joes one of the enemy names. So yeah.
Well, so it's Metalhead Goes AWOL. It's written by Roger Sliffer, who is a comic book guy, and he has written some of these episodes are great. So this is a good episode. And don't worry about getting the names wrong, man. I'm the host of the show, and I still call Iron Claw Dark Claw. This is episode 25, and I'm still getting them wrong because I think of Dark Claw in the comics, but I still get them wrong, so don't worry about that. Listeners, this episode's great, and it's got that rich history of when Dusty went AWOL, and then on DIC, my memory is blanking, but they basically redid the Dusty Turns Traitor show for the DIC episode, and they're doing it again now. So it's good, and it's a good, it's a great cliche gimmick for a show that works all the time. And what makes this amazing is they have quietly built this enmity on G.I. Joe Extreme between Sergeant Savage and Metalhead, because Metalhead, literally representing, like a modern, heavy metal grunge fan, right?
Right.
And Sergeant Savage literally being a World War II generation. So they clash, and they have been building this for the whole season, and it comes to a head here, and it's great because this is huge character development. It wasn't just a gimmick they used in one episode. It leads to Sergeant Savage straight up, accusing Metalhead of treason, and it's great.
And I did think it was interesting there. He pointed at the clock like this was like the military was like his part-time job after school.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, you're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So,
I'm off the clock. Yeah.
I'm off the clock, man.
Yeah.
So, which is funny because I'm pretty sure the military is a full-time kind of a situation there.
Kind of. Although, who knows? I'll say this in his defense, maybe the G.I. Joe team operates a little differently. He also may have had, like a leave pass because it was a scheduled gig for his band, right? So I'm assuming that he had that worked out ahead of time, like, hey,
that makes sense.
Hey, Cap, or hey, I guess he would have been if he didn't get it cleared through Savage, he would have gotten it through Steel, right? Of saying like, hey, I need Friday night off because my band's playing. I'm sure he got it approved. So now he meets, I think her name's Susie, and there's a great bit that comes up later. So I'm not going to jump into it now, but she's got like a bouffanty, I wouldn't call it punk rock haircut, but it's like a headband. She looks like what Zorana would always dress up as in the old cartoons. Would you agree with that, Yorktown Joe?
Yes, and the fact that she was trying to talk her way past security, and then all of a sudden he's just following. Here's the field.
So we get a little shot where this action is happening at the World Trade Center. So, bum.
Yeah.
But what's
this
funny?
Was mid-90s,
right?
Yeah, that was tough. That's tough.
What's funny though? You bring up a good point. She had to talk her way past a bouncer. Now, if you guys know anyone who's in a band, the only people who have bouncers are real bands. Like if you're just playing at a bar down the street, there's no bouncer outside your dressing room to make sure nobody comes in and bothers you. That's just not a thing. So these guys must have some following. But this is amazing. The Joe helicopters show up at the World Trade Center, and it's Sergeant Savage, and he's accusing two members of Metalhead's band of being agents of S.K.A.R.
without any evidence, evidently. So that would
Well,
be
sure, that's true. But I feel like it's the you're a dirty long-haired hippie evidence is what it is. And here comes Steel for the first time. Or Steel, Lieutenant Stone. Sorry, Steel Stone. Again, this is what I'm saying. I'm just the names. I'm still. I don't think I'm. By the time we get to like G.I. Joe Renegades, I'll probably lock down my extreme names.
And I think they were concerned about Metalhead since he took the name Metalhead, which in the previous generation was a
Maybe
Cobra or Destro agent.
I'll say this:
yeah, then
the evidence they had, the Joes did find a S.K.A.R recruitment flyer. If you remember, there was a S.K.A.R recruitment flyer, and that's basically the flimsy evidence they need. So Susie, she clocks Lieutenant Stone over the head with a chair. And these faceless green shirt MPs, they're now chasing Metalhead. So Metalhead now is officially going AWOL, absent without leave, because he's fleeing the scene of this crime, so to speak. By the way, I think that was a stairwell without any stairs.
It looked just kind of like a square.
Right,
yes.
didn't it? Yeah, like it was supposed to be a stairwell, but no one drew any stairs. So it was just a square where you could just jump down and kill yourself.
Gravity.
This is awesome. They jumped on one of the elevators in the World Trade Center, and they're riding down with Stone as he's carried out on a stretcher. So he's on a stretcher, guys. That means she really did damage to him on the chair. Normally, any action movie, the chair is the prop to like give you time to get away, right? You hit him with a chair. They shake their head for a minute or two while you run away, and then they go after you. She straight up sent him to the hospital.
Right.
That's awesome. It's absolutely great.
Ooh, the secret headquarters now.
Yeah. So now, Yorktown Joe. This, do you recognize who this is? Black Dragon? Oh, I'm sorry, not Black Dragon. Steel Raven.
Iron Claw?
Well, that's Iron Claw. But do you recognize the woman? Claw. The woman is Steel Raven.
Oh, yes.
She's awesome. And I love seeing Steel Raven. The more Steel Raven, the better. We're going to commercial, and we're going to be right back. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. So we're back, and now they're in the Joe interrogation room. And Lieutenant Stone shows us the results of their lie detector test, and they don't know anything about it. And Stone has his head wrapped in bandage. By the way, Lieutenant Stone has a rich history of getting head trauma on this show. In previous episodes, he's been hospitalized for head trauma. I think Lieutenant Stone is going to be an early candidate for like CTE, memory loss.
And that's terrible. On top of all the HGH all these guys have taken, the CTE is just going to be, that's just going to wreak havoc.
Yeah, completely. What if it turns out HGH actually helps CTE And the reason players are getting CTE is because the NFL stopped them from using HGH. So eventually what we're going to end up with is an NFL full of G.I. Joe extreme looking and football players roided to the gills, but all of that to stop their brains from eroding. What if that was the truth of the matter?
Wow. Now, who's the guy with the do-rag?
That's Tracker. He's great. He never had a figure. They introduced him. They used him in a couple episodes earlier this season, and his dog is Lakota, and he's awesome. He's literally his name's Tracker. He's the Tracker. He's like Spirit for this round.
Got it.
But the dog's great. I like him a lot. So it's Black Dragon and Sergeant Steel, Sergeant Steel. I'm getting everything confused. Sergeant Savage and Black Dragon. They're all chasing after. They're using Lakota to track down Metalhead. So, what do you think of the animation style, Yorktown Joe?
The animation style does not look. It doesn't look bad. This looks like something that I would want to see the rest of. So I'm very glad to have been a guest and getting access to these, because now I can go back and watch them again. And if I'm clever, I may be able to watch them and listen to some Joe and Joe podcasts to have commentary while I'm watching them and feel like I'm right part of the action.
That's it. That's the whole. No, this is it. This is the moment. Look at. Susie just took off her hair. She was wearing a wig, and underneath her wig was an exact replica of her wig, except a slightly different shade of it.
And now she's got friends coming in. So, yeah.
She looks exactly the same. I had to rewind this and rewatch that moment multiple times to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. She takes off a wig to reveal her hair that looks exactly like the wig. I am absolutely in love with it, and the reason they did that I don't know why they did it that way. She should have shook out her hair, and it should have been long tresses. I have no idea, but she welcomes in two dudes. She's the S.K.A.R agent, this Susie lady. She's actually working with S.K.A.R, and these two dudes who are like S.K.A.R recruiters per se, they show up, and now here we are at the wig shop where she got her wig.
Wow. You cannot make this up. You can't make this
so
up.
Great. So, did you sell a brunette wig to a lady with an exact matching set of brunette hair that matched that wig? As a matter of fact, I did.
And they did not even slip this guy Andrew Jackson or anything to try to get this information. They just walked in, and he was giving information about his customers.
Well, I think he's like, listen. If I'm selling wigs to people who are on the wrong side of the Joe on Joe G.I. Joe Extreme team, I don't want to help them. They must be bad. That is an ethical wig maker, even though he sold a wig that looked exactly like the hair of the woman that was buying the wig. Oh, look at that behind him. There's a Kiss poster.
Posters on the wall.
Yeah, that is an actual Kiss poster. That's Gene Simmons putting his tongue out. That's great. The one poster looked a little bit like had a little Axl Rose to it.
Wow.
I would bet you that those posters are all specifically supposed to be somebody. That's cool. Yeah, so Susie, before they left, she scattered a bunch of S.K.A.R pamphlets. So now Tracker and the other Joes, they're convinced. They're just convinced that that Metalhead has gone to the other side. And Lakota gets the scent, and he's chasing after him. Like, this episode moves, man. There's a lot going on here. By the way, Metalhead's shirt looks like Charlie Brown's shirt, for the record.
I was going to mention that, but I didn't want to get too far off track. But yeah, it had the zigzag pattern in the middle of it, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yorktown Joe, this show is all about being off track. Don't you? There have been entire episodes where we barely mentioned what's happening on screen, let alone pause to show that they've animated him to look like Charlie Brown.
I'm surprised he didn't when he was at the beginning, when he was saying to Sergeant Savage, "Hey, you can't be the boss of me right now. I've got my pass. I'm leaving to go do my gig, and tell mom I'm out of conditioner or whatever." Because he has some flowing. He's got some flowing. flowing
he
hair.
should have had the wig. He should have been like, hey, do you mind if I borrow that wig to change my look? Because your look is not changed at all, Susie Claw lady. So now they're going to the Gargoyle Club. And it's a club with a bunch of gargoyles around it, which I understand. But then, strangely enough, for no reason, there was a mummy. Did you catch that mummy?
Yeah, this is a kind of a gothic, creepy kind of a
I like it. Yeah, it's very gothic. It's very creepy. Cyclops, apparently from the X-Men, is there.
Yes.
It's totally Cyclops. It's very gothic and very creepy, but why a mummy? I don't know.
Yeah, if it wasn't for licensing, Batman could be popping in here to bust some people up too.
So she's really vetting Metalhead to join S.K.A.R. Like really vetting him.
Right.
Now, the Joe, and I get why you would want to recruit a member of G.I. Joe, because he would have a lot of secrets. But and I guess this makes sense though, because because he has all the secrets. So that is why they're doing it. So they're not just looking to just recruit a random guy from a band. They know Metalhead's a part of the G.I. Joe team. That is exactly what's happening here. And so they're like, she like honeypotted him, you know. She gave him something to believe in. Oh, the Joes have turned against you, so they're chasing you around the city. This all makes a lot of sense. I like it.
And psychologically, it's giving some. It's like layers of deception here, because if things don't, obviously she slipped something that flyer in originally to start the path of hey, what's going on with that? I don't know. I don't even know where that came from. And
we're going to go to commercial. We'll be right back. Hold that thought. Today's file card is on the Space Shuttle Defiant pilot, codenamed Payload. His file name is Mark Morgan Jr. His birthplace, of course, is Cape Canaveral, Florida, and his primary military specialty is the astronaut. Secondary specialty, fixed-wing pilot. He's a grade 06 colonel. Payload grew up watching the early space shots blasting off through the Florida sky. He stared through the hurricane fence and rode that flaming booster in his dreams, but unlike others, he worked on making that dream a reality by joining the Air Force. He flew F-4 Phantoms over Southeast Asia for 3 tours, quote, just paying his dues, and upon his return to stateside, signed up for the astronaut training program. Quote, here's a guy who spent most of his waking hours for his entire life working on getting himself into space. Sometimes he's executing a complicated maneuver in a free fall, or when he's cutting in his boosters, he seems to be chanting softly underneath his breath. If you turn up the volume in a ship-to-ship channel and listen very carefully, you can hear him quite clearly. Vroom, vroom. So this is a guy who absolutely dreamed of being an astronaut when he was a kid. As the card says, fought hard to make that happen. I read that file card off of his first version card, which was in a predominantly white suit with red flares on it, very much like a traditional spacesuit. But, we're working backwards here. And so I was originally looking at his suit and his look from his fourth version when he's the Astro pilot. This is the one that came out in 1994. His suit in 1994 is great. The picture they have on his file card does not match the final card. The file card is more of a red, white, and blue look on the image, but his figure is black with blue. Like, he almost could be a Snake Eyes figure. And he's got a great see-through mask for his space shuttle look. I dig it. I like Payload. I love his story, the Cape Canaveral stuff, that he's a kid who grew up wanting to do that. So, Payload, the Astro pilot, Mark Morgan Jr., we salute you. And we're back. Yeah, you were saying that she slipped it in to kind of get into his brain with it.
Right. And then when he realizes, hey, everybody thinks I'm a traitor, or she's trying to tell me that they're after me and these people are really my friends, when he's figuring it out, none of these people are really my friends, but she's working pretty hard to get him to turn.
Totally. Yeah, and I would not be surprised if there was that. So they made a point of drawing like smoke or vapors or something coming off a drink that's in front of him. I wouldn't be surprised if that was some kind of like hypnotic kind of toxin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because he was holding his head after that.
Yeah,
too.
Like they were trying to. Yeah,
the
like
heaviness
this,
of the situation.
Yeah,
like he's been
this is like a G-rated cartoon, PG-rated-ish cartoon version of saying like they slipped him some drugs. Like they're getting him to hallucinate. Yeah, I think that's what they're doing there, which is working. I like it. And the in keeping in theme with the Gargoyle Club. It looks like they're drinking from like beakers, like old vampire Dracula, like Frankenstein level.
Like there was a surplus
laboratory
sale at the chemistry
beakers.
lab.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like they're in an old Universal movie, and here we all drink from beakers. Yeah, his head's clouded. They definitely roofied him or drugged him in some way. Yeah, for sure. So the whole club is straight up S.K.A.R, and it's also wired for sound and video. So the Joes are about to attack it, and Susie is showing Metalhead that, you know, they're coming to get you, dude. They're not your friend, even though they are his friend and they're trying to save him. But from his perspective, see, and that's the problem. They have Sergeant Savage in charge. He's an old, cranky World War II vet. You know, he don't like him because he's got long hair. Oh, but here they go. They're all putting on their S.K.A.R outfits.
No. So,
do you have a favorite of all these generations now, Yorktown Joe? You've been through the 8.5 inch, a little bit of the 12 inch, the 3 3/4, Real American Hero, DIC, comic book. Now you're getting into Extreme. You've seen the movies, I'm imagining. You may have, I don't know if you watch like Renegades or or Spy Troops and basically all the iterations of G.I. Joe. Do you have a favorite one that to this day you're like, yeah, I can always go back and watch that, or read that, or whatever?
Right, and I do really like the original Marvel run, and then I've been trying to find those. I had, of course, in paper copies, but now they've continued on the Real American Hero run with
IDW,
with Larry Hama,
Yep.
and that's been interesting stuff as well. I like that Hasbro has re-released at least the Sunbow things on their YouTube channel.
Mhm.
At almost any point in time, you could just click on live and jump into any
Absolutely.
middle of an
And-
episode
and
while you're just eating something or waiting for something to
every
happen.
one of those YouTube episodes has a corresponding episode of Joe on Joe, so you can always find a Joe on Joe to go with every single one of those Sunbow episodes. May I recommend it as a listening pairing, so to speak. So would you say that the Larry Hama comics are your favorite iteration?
Quite possibly, yes. I did really like the Sunbow cartoons, and then Resolute and Renegades. Both Renegades were some really well told stories.
Mhm.
That could have gone longer, and that they did pair that as a obviously.
I want an answer, Yorktown Joe. I'm
I'd go
putting you to the
Marvel
screws
Comics,
here.
yeah.
Thank you.
Marvel
That's
Comics,
what we're
yeah.
talking about. I want an answer. You say Marvel Comics. I love it. You say Marvel, I say comics. Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics. Okay. I want to nail you down here. Because had you said Yorktown Joe, had you said Renegades, you would have won a lifetime supply of Yoo-Hoo. Sorry, you didn't know this was a game show. We switched to game show format. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. My consolation prize of a lifetime of G.I. Joe Extreme. I can
exactly.
watch these episodes anytime I want to now. So that is great.
Had you answered really incorrectly, would have given you a lifetime supply of DIC. So,
that would be like a punishment.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, Yorktown, on my show, I love well, real quick before we get into this, listeners, Metalhead has now met Ironclaw, and Ironclaw is bringing him into the fold. Metalhead is absolutely joining S.K.A.R right now as the show's starting to wrap up. He's getting a uniform and everything. Yorktown, I love to give my guests code names, and if you could be a member of the Joe or Cobra team or S.K.A.R or Extreme or Dreadnoks or what have you, Crimson Guard, whatever it is, what would you join? Would you be a Joe or Cobra, etc.? And what would your specialty be? And then we'll get a code name for you.
All right. Well, that's a good question. Oh, cliffhanger.
Huge cliffhanger.
Like you said, part one.
Huge cliffhanger. This is huge cliffhanger with no hints that things are going to be okay.
And it's not like I'm stalling to try to think of something to say here for what code names are. I have mostly focused on being with the Joes, but I think it probably would be far more interesting to be Cobra. I know people always have that as a question. Well, so what's your favorite Joe? What's your favorite Cobra? Joe, and there's a lot of times people just immediately they when in doubt snake eyes out. But I always say Recondo, Danny Leclerc
Sure.
from nearby Wheaton, Wisconsin.
Love
I
it.
can actually drive 5 to 10 minutes from my house and see the town of Wheaton
Awesome.
limit. And someday I told myself I am going to drive out there, hold Recondo with one hand, take a camera picture with that Wheaton sign, and like going there. I know
You're ducking the question,
I-
Yorktown Joe.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
ducking the
I'm
question.
gonna go with Cobra.
So
I'm
you're
go
gonna
with Team
join,
Cobra.
you're gonna join Cobra. What would your specialty be?
Well, my specialty. Yes, that would be probably they're going to have, with all the money moving and laundering that they have to deal with, they're going to have some people that do have an accounting background. So instead of me using my accounting skills for good, I'd be using them for evil in this imaginary alternative world. So I'd be some type of an accountant. Now, the two things I was thinking of, you can come up with a better name for me.
Okay.
The two things I was thinking of, now Cobra's always got their anagrams. So now, Arbco, Broca,
Yeah.
even one of the more recent ones, they said carob, like the fake chocolate or whatever. But I came up with one while I was on a walk the other day. Robac, Robac, Robac. It sounds ominous, and I'm sure we can come up with something that stands for, with something that it's not just an anagram, but where it's part of that. Otherwise, because I'm old school, you might just call me Abacus. I don't know.
Abacus is good. Although, you know what's funny though? Actually, I think I don't have the list in front of me right now. I think someone else is named Abacus. I really do.
Okay.
However,
then we'll have to eliminate that one.
I think I got one that trumps Robac.
Okay.
Robac or Robac.
Yes.
I got two options for you. And certainly we can go with, ultimately it's your call. But you're going to be like financial accounting for Cobra. I'm assuming you're some type of I'm assuming you're working with extensive enterprises at some level. I feel like either the launderer, because you're doing money laundering, because you're doing a lot of money laundering. So you're either the money launderer or you're a wash viper. W period A period S period H period.
That, and see, no wash viper. Now
and I don't know what wash stands for, but I like the name wash viper, and I like it. And you're a subsidiary of like the Crimson Guard.
That sounds good, because then that goes with being one guy during the day and then being another guy with an alternate alter ego.
Yeah, instead of Freds, you guys are all named Steve. You guys are all genetically engineered to look alike, and you're all named Steve. There's the Fred series Crimson Guard, yeah, and Suburban Steve the Wash Vipers. That's what you are. So welcome, welcome to the Joe on Joe team, Suburban Steve the Wash Viper.
and I'll just do you one even better than that. I'll take Wash Viper, because pretty much that is Saturday's chore for Yorktown Joe. Is I take care of all the laundry except my wife's laundry. So I take care of both of our sons' laundry, my laundry, whites, any of that. So
that's the double. That's the double meaning to it, because when people ask you, like in your real life or like on paper, when they're like, "Well, what do you, how do you, where's your money come from?" You tell them a series of laundromats around the Wisconsin area. You know what I mean? Like, you give them, your front for laundering the money is literally laundromats. I get to deal with a lot of quarters, I'm Suburban Steve, the Wash Viper. That's what's going on with you.
Perfect.
It's Yorktown Joe, Suburban Steve, the Wash Viper. Welcome to the Joe on Joe team. Yorktown Joe, this has been a delight, man. Thanks so much for joining me today. What are your thoughts? Any wrap-up thoughts on Metalhead Goes AWOL?
Now, this is one of those things where when you watch something through, and perhaps you did this when you were younger as well, or now, when you look at the clock and you look at the episode and you say, there's no way they're going to be able to wrap this up. This is going to be
Yeah.
a cliffhanger, and it's going to jump onto another episode. And regardless of what television program you've watched in the past, it's always one of those things where you're like, there's some foreshadowing of a cliffhanger here, because no Deus Ex Machina is going to fix this.
You're completely right.
So.
I didn't realize, because the name of it wasn't like part 1 or anything for real. I actually did not realize this was a 2-parter until I got to the towards the 3rd act, and I was like, this isn't wrapping up. Oh, we're dealing with a 2-parter, because the next episode is called something different. It's not called like Metalhead AWOL 2. It's called Betrayal. So, could have been anything. So did you enjoy it? Or are you going to go back and watch more Extreme?
I'm just going to say, listeners, you need to tune in next week for the exciting conclusion of this extreme podcast, because otherwise you won't ever know. Did Sergeant Savage, instead of saving Metalhead, did he throw him in the clink?
Did he murder him? Yeah, like, who knows? Maybe.
Or was he caught in a crossfire trying to explain, hey, no, I'm really not with them. This is all a big mistake.
It's the end of
actually played you.
It's the end of the series. Yeah. It's the end of the series. Maybe Metalhead's just like, okay, I'm gonna straight up join S.K.A.R. Like, maybe
Betrayal would be a name for that.
Yeah.
Episode. Oh, man.
Who knows?
That's heavy.
Who knows what happens? Anything can happen next week. So make sure you tune in. Yorktown Joe, this has been an absolute delight. Thanks for being on the show today, my friend.
I'm so glad to be on here. I'm a fan. So if anybody out there is a fan, give Joe and Joe a listen. Make sure you subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes are available. And we're looking forward to expanding the circle, and hopefully the G.I. Joe brand will live on for another generation.
Oh man, I thank you so much for the kind words, and I second all those. Let's keep help grow the brand, so more and more Joe fans are out there, so we get more and more Joe content. Well, this has been Yorktown Joe and Joe on Joe for another week. And now you, Joe. And Joeing is half the battle. Extreme!